It can't just be that, when you're pitching Star Wars, you have to pull from what, George was also interested in.
It's very clear that she views the world through the lens of her sexuality, which is a superficial identity. She makes it pretty clear that her main goal is to tell a queer story featuring women. Then goes on to say, in order to do that, she has to pull from the work of George Lucas and the original IP.
Star Wars The Acolyte not only has lesbian space witches,
the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
But now it has a lovely, stunning, and brave pronoun scene.
What's that? That's Basil. Is he or they with us?
I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
Star Wars is facing growing criticism, with some fans now referring to it as woke wars. For years, Disney has been steering the franchise in a direction that many fans never asked for. Once known for its deep storytelling, Star Wars has increasingly been criticized for prioritizing agendas over meaningful narratives, leading to a fractured and chaotic franchise. Now, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, might be stepping back in to take control of the situation. The latest flop, The Acolyte, has become a major point of contention. Disney invested millions into the show, marketing it as a bold new take on Star Wars. Instead, it turned out to be a failure, with fans rejecting it, viewership numbers plummeting, and merchandise sales struggling so much that stores had to slash prices just to move stock. Reports have emerged that Disney has decided to cancel the show's second season, but the drama doesn't stop there. The show's creator, Leslie Headland, is reportedly threatening legal action, claiming that Disney promised her a second season and owes her millions. Meanwhile, actress Amandla Stenberg, the lead in The Acolyte, has defended the series, blaming the backlash on bigotry rather than addressing the show's flaws. Amid all this turmoil, rumors are swirling that George Lucas may have had a role in the decision to shut down the series. Some insiders suggest that Lucas has been quietly guiding the direction of Lucasfilm behind the scenes, and others believe he's pushing for a complete overhaul of Star Wars. The question remains, is George Lucas stepping in to fix the mess that Disney has made, or is this just another sign of Star Wars' decline under Disney's leadership? Let's break it down.
It's been 10 days since the news broke that The Acolyte, the biggest Disney Star Wars failure we've ever seen on Disney Plus, had been canceled, and rightfully so. Well, Amandla Stenberg has finally broken her silence about what happened to this series.
We started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol.
It's just so tiresome, isn't it? Hearing the same thing every time we see one of these projects end up falling flat on its face. She would go on, specifically to say it must have been the alt-right.
Targeted attack, I would say, we received by the alt-right.
Never any ownership, never any accountability. Instead, well, it can't be our fault. It must be those bigoted, racist fans out there. What an absolute joke. But I'd expect nothing less from Lucasfilm and the actresses that they hire.
Star Wars The Acolyte is not getting a season 2. Can you guess how Star Wars fans are reacting to that news?
Woke Disney will never learn.
More offensive, woke, racist, misandrist, DEI garbage.
Our Star Wars show has been canceled. And I'm gonna be transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and when no one had even seen it.
The Acolyte Season 2 has officially been canceled, and the reasons behind it are anything but simple. The show, which many already consider one of the biggest missteps in Star Wars history, is now embroiled in a full-blown disaster. It's a tangled mess of backlash, legal threats, and a massive clash between Lucasfilm and Disney executives. The fallout from this failed project is quickly turning into a cautionary tale of what happens when political agendas and identity politics are prioritized over good storytelling. The blame for The Acolyte's failure seems to fall squarely on the shoulders of its creator, Leslie Headland, and its lead actress, Amandla Stenberg. Both have struggled to handle the criticism and backlash, which has only fueled the growing tension between them and Disney. Instead of addressing the concerns fans had about the show's quality, they're pointing fingers at bigotry and blaming the audience for not accepting their vision. And as if that wasn't enough, Headland is now threatening legal action, claiming Disney promised her a second season and owes her millions, further complicating an already disastrous situation. While the drama unfolds, there are whispers that this is only the beginning of a much bigger fight within the Star Wars franchise, with many fans accusing Disney of pushing a woke agenda that undermines the legacy of Star Wars. Insiders are suggesting that Disney execs and Lucasfilm are now at odds over the direction the franchise should take. The once celebrated universe is now on the brink, caught between the pressure to cater to a certain demographic and the need to stay true to the stories that made Star Wars iconic in the first place. The failure of the Acolyte has proven to be one of the most public and costly missteps for Disney in recent years, but it may also signal a larger reckoning for the company. Will George Lucas step in to fix the mess, or is the damage already done? As things continue to unfold, one thing is clear: this drama is far from over, and the future of Star Wars is more uncertain than ever.
What a swirl of its emotions it has created. Online fans, it had some fantastic highs and a really promising ending for the show, but it's not going to be getting that season 2. We will never.
The Acolyte never should have been a TV show in the first place. There simply wasn't enough content to fill 8 episodes. It should have been a movie. It could have actually been really solid, but after Solo flopped at the box office, Lucasfilm pretty much just stopped making these.
But if there's one thing I know from being a lifelong Star Wars fan, it's that nothing is truly ever over. There is no way Lucasfilm is abandoning this guy, and there's no way his storyline doesn't pick up where it left off.
Are you the most nervous or the most confident woman here today?
I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. I've worked on this for 4 years. It's my baby.
The truth is, like, we are so spoiled now with Star Wars media. I know that it can feel sometimes like, well, I like this thing and I don't like that thing, and if you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, the reality is that Star Wars in and of itself is not just a vast universe full of many different characters, many different eras, but it is always about the spiritual journey of what it is to become who you are.
The drama surrounding the Acolyte showrunner, Leslie Headland, and Disney is heating up after the series' underwhelming performance. Disney made the decision to cancel the second season, but Headland isn't going down without a fight. Instead of moving on, she's threatening legal action, claiming that Disney owes her for her work and the promises she believes were made. According to Headland, her contract guaranteed a second season, and she argues that Disney, specifically CEO Bob Iger, had approved content for season 2 early on. This led to her team filming costly footage meant to set up a continuation, including a $7 million scene featuring Darth Plagueis and other controversial elements, which some fans believe broke Star Wars canon. Now, with the show's cancellation, Headland believes she's entitled to a $1 million payout for future episodes, as outlined in her deal. However, Disney is pushing back. Bob Iger and other executives maintain that no official agreement for a second season was ever made. They argue that the decision to film additional footage was speculative and not an official green light. Given the show's poor performance, failing to crack the top 10 in ratings and receiving overwhelmingly negative reviews, they justify the cancellation. Headland, however, refuses to accept this reasoning. She has dismissed criticism of The Acolyte, calling negative feedback fake and accusing critics of being biased rather than offering legitimate concerns about the show's storytelling. Rather than acknowledging the issues, she's doubling down on her stance and demanding what she believes she's owed. In a recent interview, Headland downplayed the cancellation rumors, claiming she hasn't heard anything from Lucasfilm and is simply taking a break after years of intense focus on the Star Wars universe. However, behind closed doors, reports suggest that she's preparing to go public with her grievances. Allegedly, she's threatening to expose Disney executives through interviews and podcasts in an attempt to pressure them into reinstating the project. She isn't alone in this battle. Kathleen Kennedy, who has been a major force behind The Acolyte, is fully backing Headland's efforts. Kennedy views the show as a key part of Lucasfilm's future and has been pushing Disney to reconsider its decision. Despite their pushback, Disney's financial struggles and the company's focus on cutting underperforming projects make it increasingly unlikely that Season 2 will ever see the light of day.
We have to face one hard reality as a country. The new Star Wars was not as good as everyone thought it was. It may seem fun to go back and recycle the past we loved, but we end up with no sustenance. Instead of a fresh new Star Wars, we want the old, just recycled and plopped in our tummies.
Probably no shock to anybody, but here you go. Oh, Star Wars. Oh, Lucasfilm. Oh, Kathleen Kennedy. If The Mandalorian had to say something, this isn't the way when it comes to Star Wars. I mean, The Mandalorian worked, and Kenobi worked. Things have worked, but there are also things that have not worked when it comes to future projects that have been announced for Star Wars, specifically when it comes to the Rey Skywalker one. And, well, Stephen Knight is no longer writing the Rey Star Wars movie. The film will now likely not make the heavily rumored December 2026 release date. Jeez. Who knows what's going on with that? Probably the similar things of like, he wanted to do something else. Lucasfilm was like, nope, you can't do that. It's got to be like this, and blah.
I was interested in doing a film that could affect kids. And I'd studied mythology and everything, and I decided I'm going to make a modern myth, and which teaches, again, the basics of what you have in a society. Because mythology is there to glue a society together. It gives you common ideas about who you are, about what your society is, what you believe in, what your God is, what your values are.
I love what you said about wanting to entertain audiences, critics saying Disney's too woke, but you're just putting out storytelling.
We are. Look, I don't really like the term woke because I think it's an umbrella term that I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means, and one could argue that sometimes it's used too liberally. That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
The biggest question surrounding the Acolyte saga is whether Disney will cave to the pressure, especially given the company's current cost-cutting strategies and ongoing legal battles, like the Gina Carano lawsuit. At this point, it seems unlikely. Disney understands that bringing back the Acolyte would be a financial risk with little reward, especially considering the series' underwhelming performance. It's clear they want to move forward and focus on projects that genuinely resonate with fans, rather than investing more in a show that has failed to live up to expectations. But the drama doesn't stop with Leslie Headland. Another key player in the Acolyte controversy is the show's lead actress, Amandla Stenberg. After the series' disappointing reception, Disney chose to part ways with Stenberg, but she's not handling the situation quietly. Disney dropped Stenberg from 5 other Star Wars projects, citing the show's poor ratings and declining viewership as key factors in their decision. Despite an initial decent debut, with 488 million minutes viewed, the Acolyte quickly plummeted off the Nielsen charts, failing to meet Disney's high standards for a renewal, especially given that the show reportedly cost over $100 million to produce. This was a major financial disappointment. However, the underperformance of the show wasn't the only reason Disney cut ties with Stenberg. Her social media presence and behavior behind the scenes also played a significant role in the decision. One of the major issues was a controversial music video she posted on Instagram, which Disney repeatedly asked her to remove. The video, filled with strong language and political undertones, was seen as a direct response to the backlash the show faced. Despite multiple warnings from Disney executives, Stenberg refused to take it down, ultimately sealing her fate with the company. In response to her firing, Stenberg has been vocal about what she believes is the true reason behind her ousting: discrimination. She claims that she was targeted due to her race and LGBTQ+ identity, blaming what she describes as a rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol from Star Wars fans. According to Stenberg, the criticism of The Acolyte began long before the show even aired, and she believes the backlash was driven by prejudice, rather than legitimate criticism of the show's quality. In a series of emotional Instagram stories, Stenberg shared her thoughts on the cancellation, stating that it wasn't a huge shock for her and accusing critics of harboring hatred for anything that is other. She also insisted that the series was unfairly targeted by right-wing audiences who review-bombed it on platforms like Rotten Tomatoes, where the audience score dropped to a dismal 18%, despite a much higher critic score. In response to the racist hate she received from Star Wars fans, Stenberg shared a message explaining that she recorded and shot the music video in just 72 hours. "It's as cringe as you'd imagine," she wrote, acknowledging the rushed and emotional nature of the video while defending her decision to stand up against the negativity she faced. At the end of the day, both Headland and Stenberg have found themselves at the center of a storm of controversy, with Disney trying to distance itself from both figures in the wake of the Acolyte's failure. However, the battle is far from over, and with both parties continuing to publicly voice their grievances, the situation remains tense and unresolved.
Racist, and now they use it to describe anything they do.
Disney's outrage marketing has officially reached its peak, and now there's a diss track by Star Wars Acolyte star Amandla Stenberg against Star Wars fans and how terrible and mean they are. And what is this timeline? We have to go back. Why is this happening?
Great review. Maybe if you had gotten your eyes off my tits, you could have watched the movie.
I'm so bored, don't F with Joe Discourse, and she's kind of jiggling around like she's doing some kind of pagan ritual or something. Huh. All you people are racist. I want white people to cry. That's my goal. You people are silly racists. I've been oppressed for 400 years. I, some young Hollywood starlet. Yeah, can't believe it didn't work, huh? Can you imagine?
Adding fuel to the fire, Amandla Stenberg released a diss track that directly addressed the criticism she's faced, in which she rapped about racism and took aim at those who used the term woke as an insult. In the song, she expressed her frustration over constantly having to defend herself and stated that she was sick and tired of repressing her anger. The track only intensified the divide between her supporters and critics. While many in Hollywood, including former Star Wars star John Boyega, showed their support for Stenberg, Disney executives viewed the situation quite differently. From their perspective, her growing controversies were becoming a liability. They argued that her off-screen behavior and refusal to follow corporate guidelines made it increasingly difficult to continue working with her, especially in light of the Acolyte's commercial failure. Disney is also keen to avoid another major legal battle, like the ongoing Gina Carano lawsuit, and Stenberg has reportedly threatened legal action, claiming that her firing was politically motivated and part of a broader effort to silence diverse voices in Hollywood. She's been backed in her fight by none other than Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland, who continue to defend the Acolyte and push for a second season despite the overwhelming negative feedback. In the end, Disney appears to be standing firm. The company has made it clear that they are moving forward without Stenberg and the Acolyte, focusing instead on projects that align more closely with their financial goals and audience expectations. Stenberg, however, continues to hint at future legal action and speaks out against the treatment she has faced, suggesting that the controversy surrounding her and the show is far from over. When it comes to the Acolyte, the writing was on the wall long before Disney officially canceled the show. While some outlets tried to frame the cancellation as a victory for so-called toxic dude bros, the reality is far simpler. The Acolyte failed because it was too expensive and didn't deliver the viewership or critical acclaim that Disney needed to justify its massive budget. With a budget of $180 million, it was the second most expensive Star Wars show on Disney Plus after Andor. However, the show underperformed in nearly every meaningful way. When broken down, The Acolyte cost an eye-watering $671,000 per minute of screen time, far more than Andor, which cost around $529,000 per minute but delivered longer episodes, a more compelling story, and a loyal audience. Unfortunately, The Acolyte couldn't generate the same kind of buzz. It debuted with modest numbers, entering the Nielsen charts at number 7 with 488 million minutes viewed, but quickly fell off the rankings, only returning briefly at number 10 for its finale. This was a huge red flag for Disney, especially when compared to The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, which saw far better engagement during their runs. In the end, The Acolyte was a financial misfire for Disney. The company now faces a tough choice as it tries to shift focus toward projects that resonate more strongly with its audience and can deliver the kind of financial returns they desperately need.
Darth Vader is such a bad person. It's very clear, and it's very well established from those actions. But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this.
I mean, the best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on, truly. You know what I mean? That you can look at any angle and see yourself relayed through all the characters, Darth to Luke. You know what I'm saying?
If you were a fan of The Acolyte that wishes it got more seasons, this is why you should be mad that Disney keeps overspending on their projects. The Acolyte didn't look like it cost $180 million, and it didn't need to cost $180 million.
The one word that I think perfectly sums up what's wrong with this episode: conveniences. Plot conveniences, to be specific. The essence of interesting drama is conflict, be that emotional, physical, whatever.
Alright, here's where we dive into the bigger problem. Imposters have taken over Star Wars and many other beloved franchises. It's not just about one bad episode. It's about a broader trend that's ruining these iconic stories.
So Star Wars The Acolyte sucks. Bad writing, bad dialogue, enough plot holes to make a swimming pool, and it might be destroying Star Wars.
They're remaking Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. You can't do that.
As a big fan, I thought, well, if I want to tell my own story, what am I the most interested in? And it was the rise of the Sith. I mean, how did the rule of two continue through all of this time until Sidious and Maul reveal themselves in The Phantom Menace? So that just sparked for me the most interesting place for it to take place. And I think the end of the High Republic is just a place where the Jedi find themselves almost a little too safe. They feel they're almost in this place where they can't imagine a threat coming at them.
Oh, yeah.
So I think what May starts with them is something that really ruffles their feathers. They definitely were not expecting someone to come at them straight on.
The biggest issue with The Acolyte wasn't its diversity or the High Republic setting. It was its poor execution. Both fans and critics alike pointed to glaring plot holes, uneven acting, and weak storytelling as the primary reasons for their disappointment. The twin storyline featuring Amandla Stenberg's character, Osha, and May was widely criticized for being gimmicky and underdeveloped. There were also major lore-breaking moments, like the introduction of Anakin Skywalker's predecessors, which alienated longtime Star Wars fans and made it clear that the series had strayed far from George Lucas's original vision. Some of the most heavily criticized aspects of the show included the rushed pace, which burned through plot points and characters too quickly. Questionable writing choices, such as the infamous witch chant scene, which many viewers found cringeworthy, further detracted from the series. Even more frustrating for fans was the decision to kill off one of the most promising characters within the first few minutes, removing any intrigue for the rest of the season. Despite these flaws, Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland remained confident in their vision for the show. Kennedy pushed hard for the series to continue, arguing that The Acolyte needed more time to build an audience. However, Disney, facing growing financial pressures, made it clear that underperforming projects wouldn't be given second chances. The decision to cancel The Acolyte wasn't just about bad reviews, it was a financial necessity. With costs spiraling and no significant return on investment, continuing the series would have been a major gamble. Bob Iger's cost containment plan focused on cutting underperforming projects and reallocating resources to more successful franchises. The failure of The Acolyte has also raised concerns about the future of Star Wars content on Disney+, with subscriber numbers already declining. Another high-profile flop could further damage the platform's reputation. The company now faces difficult decisions on how to move forward without further alienating fans. The key takeaway from The Acolyte's failure is that Disney needs to be more strategic with its Star Wars projects. Giving massive budgets to showrunners with little experience, as was the case with Leslie Headland, has proven to be a costly mistake. Future projects will need a clear vision, better writing, and a deeper respect for the core elements that made Star Wars beloved in the first place. Disney needs to understand that diversity and new ideas aren't the issue. Execution is. Shows like Andor have proven that fresh takes on Star Wars can work when handled correctly, but The Acolyte showed what happens when storytelling takes a backseat to social messaging and concepts that don't resonate with the audience. Disney's legal troubles don't stop with The Acolyte. The fallout from Gina Carano's firing back in 2021 continues to haunt the company, and now Leslie Headland and Amandla Stenberg are taking a similar approach, threatening legal action against Disney. Carano, who was fired from The Mandalorian for controversial social media posts, has taken Disney to court, claiming wrongful termination and discrimination. Her case has gained traction, particularly among fans who argue that Disney unfairly targeted her for political reasons. If the lawsuit moves forward, it could force Kathleen Kennedy and other Lucasfilm executives to testify, bringing more unwanted attention to the company. With The Acolyte's cancellation, the ongoing legal challenges, and the mounting financial pressures, Disney's handling of the Star Wars franchise is at a crossroads. The company will need to rethink its approach if it hopes to regain the trust of its audience and keep its Star Wars legacy intact.
Master Yoda. I mean you no harm. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
The fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
Impossible to see. The future is. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense. A Jedi's strength flows from the Force. But beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they. A Jedi craves not these things. Twilight is upon me, and soon night must fall.
A rogue Jedi named Soul killed his accomplices to maintain the cover story.
Great warrior!
And where is Master Soul now?
I believe he ended his own life.
Soul made a mistake. A mistake he lived with for so long it twisted his mind.
So, what do you guys want to talk about?
Star Wars The Acolyte is done. Cancelled. Finished.
So long, goodbye, adios, sayonara.
Following The Acolyte's cancellation, both Leslie Headland and Amandla Stenberg have hinted at taking legal action. Headland claims Disney broke contractual obligations by canceling Season 2, while Stenberg argues that her removal from future Star Wars projects was discriminatory. Both cases echo the drama surrounding Gina Carano's firing and portray Disney as unfairly targeting individuals based on ideological differences rather than performance. Disney, already struggling to regain trust after years of divisive Star Wars content, now faces even deeper divisions with their core audience. Many longtime fans view these lawsuits as evidence that Disney is prioritizing internal politics over quality storytelling, which only further alienates them from the franchise. If these lawsuits gain momentum, Disney could face more PR disasters, which would only worsen the already declining brand reputation. The parallels between the cases paint a troubling picture, showing that Disney's leadership decisions continue to drive a wedge between the company, talent, and fans alike. Given The Acolyte's failure and the mounting controversies surrounding it, the big question remains: where does Star Wars go from here? It's clear that the franchise needs a major course correction. Fans are demanding a return to George Lucas's original vision, with timeless storytelling, memorable characters, and respect for established lore. The failure of The Acolyte and the fallout surrounding it show that Star Wars is not just another IP. It requires careful stewardship. Leadership changes at Lucasfilm, including the long-speculated departure of Kathleen Kennedy, may be necessary if Disney wants to win back fans. Rather than pursuing risky, high-budget projects like The Acolyte, Disney could focus on revisiting classic Star Wars eras, such as the beloved Old Republic timeline. Hiring proven talent who understand the core values of the franchise and listening to fans, crafting stories that respect the Star Wars legacy while introducing fresh ideas, could be the key to revitalizing the series. The franchise is at a crossroads, and Disney must decide whether to double down on divisive storytelling or refocus on what made Star Wars special in the first place. In the end, The Acolyte didn't deserve a second season, and Disney knows it. The show's poor reception, financial losses, and behind-the-scenes controversies made its cancellation inevitable. Leslie Headland and Amanda Stenberg's refusal to accept reality has only worsened the situation, dragging Disney further into unnecessary drama. The future of Star Wars depends on whether Disney learns from this failure. Fans have made it clear they want quality storytelling that respects the universe they love. Ignoring them could mean losing them for good. What do you think? Should Disney return to its roots? Or is it too late to save Star Wars? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates and controversies in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, it's about good and evil in us, as well as our institutions. So, and the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people. Or you can make bad choices. Well, you make bad choices, but you run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's how do democracy turn back into dictatorship? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom turn it over to somebody that's going to take it all away from them? This happened through history forever and ever, and all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules, and if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom. And at the same time, those people who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people who don't care about other people.
In a shocking twist that no one saw coming, George Lucas has allegedly returned to the Star Wars universe, and his first bold move? Firing Amanda Stenberg after The Acolyte became one of the biggest disasters in Disney Plus history. With the show's ratings crashing, merchandise collecting dust on clearance shelves, and Disney Plus bleeding over 1 million subscribers, it's clear something had to give. But why Stenberg? And what does this mean for the future of Star Wars? Is Lucas stepping in to save the galaxy far, far away from the mess it's become? Or is this just another desperate move in a franchise that has lost its way? Let's dive into the chaos behind The Acolyte and the fallout that's shaking the very foundation of Lucasfilm. When George Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney, many fans feared the beloved franchise would be handed over to executives who didn't understand Star Wars in the same way he did. Since then, the Star Wars brand has been under intense scrutiny, with some divisive projects like the sequel trilogy and the underwhelming reception of spin-offs such as Solo and The Acolyte. For years, fans have speculated that Lucas's absence was a major factor in the decline of the franchise's cultural relevance, and now, in the midst of The Acolyte's disastrous run, it seems that Lucas may have decided to step in and take control. The Acolyte, intended as a fresh new take on the Star Wars universe, quickly became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with the franchise's recent trajectory. The show premiered with high hopes but faltered under the weight of poor reviews, disappointing ratings, and an increasingly divided fanbase. Disney Plus subscribers began abandoning the platform, and merchandise tied to the series saw a sharp decline in sales. The fallout was swift and brutal, with many seeing The Acolyte as the final straw in Disney's handling of Star Wars. In the midst of all this chaos, Amanda Stenberg, the lead actress in The Acolyte, was allegedly let go from the project. While her role was initially hailed as one of the show's key selling points, her involvement in several controversies both on and off-screen raised questions. From her social media posts to her outspoken remarks on certain issues, Stenberg's behavior seemed to attract more attention for the wrong reasons. Her firing has sparked a frenzy of speculation. Why her and why now? Could George Lucas be taking a stand against the direction Star Wars has taken under Disney's leadership? This move raises a bigger question about the future of Star Wars. Is George Lucas returning to reclaim control of the franchise? Or is this just a reaction to the mess that The Acolyte has become? There's a growing sense among fans that Lucas's involvement could be a much-needed course correction, one that might restore Star Wars to its roots. If Lucas is truly back in the fold, his first task might be to clear out elements that stray too far from the core Star Wars identity and return to the foundational storytelling that made the galaxy far, far away so beloved. However, it's also possible that Lucas's return is a desperate move by Disney to salvage a franchise that's slipping further away from its potential. With ratings for The Acolyte plummeting and subscribers abandoning the platform, it seems that Star Wars is at a tipping point. Is this a genuine effort to fix the franchise, or is it simply a last-ditch attempt to stave off financial disaster? One thing is for certain, Star Wars has reached a critical juncture. After a decade of mixed results and escalating fan backlash, the galaxy far, far away is at risk of losing its cultural relevance. With George Lucas reportedly back in the driver's seat, the future of Star Wars is now more uncertain than ever. Will this new chapter mark a triumphant return to form, or is it just another misstep in a series of ill-fated decisions? As we watch the fallout from the Acolyte continue to unfold, all eyes are on George Lucas and his next moves. Can he restore balance to the Force, or has the damage been done? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear, Star Wars has entered a new era, and how the franchise navigates this chaos will determine its future for years to come.
She was right. I just knew when it was Ro, and that kind of brought Ahsoka together for me when I got to make the episode, and off we ran. I don't limit things. I did it in animation, so I would do it distinctly different in live action. There's just the story that it is, and I was telling it in one medium, like Rebels is a different style than Clone Wars even, visually. That changed the way I could execute certain things in Rebels. So the story has kind of evolved since I worked on Rebels. Working with John and kind of setting things down in The Mandalorian created an opportunity to see how does Ahsoka work as a character in live action.
In an unexpected twist, George Lucas, the mastermind behind the Star Wars saga, has allegedly returned to the franchise he created, and his first major move? Firing Amandla Stenberg following the disastrous flop of The Acolyte. While Lucas officially sold Lucasfilm to Disney in 2012, rumors have been swirling that he's come back to take control of a franchise that has been spiraling under Disney's leadership. These rumors are gaining momentum, fueled by several key figures within the Star Wars world. Dave Filoni, one of the leading creative forces behind recent Star Wars projects like The Mandalorian and The Clone Wars, has addressed Lucas's ongoing influence in a recent interview. Filoni admitted that Lucas still plays a role behind the scenes, even if unofficially. Would you say no? We rent the building I work in from George, so he has all the keys anyway. He can come right in, he has the pass, Filoni said, suggesting that Lucas is never too far from the action. While Filoni downplayed the idea of Lucas taking full control of the franchise again, the fact that Lucas still has access to all of Star Wars' creative decisions raises some serious questions about the true direction of the franchise. Adding fuel to the fire, Roger Christian, who worked on A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, made waves in a recent interview by suggesting that Lucas might be involved in an upcoming Star Wars live-action series. Christian casually mentioned, "I think he's coming back. I'm pretty sure now that he's doing a series. I think that they're now bringing him into the fold from what I hear, 'cause there's a Star Wars live-action series coming. I've got a strong suspicion that George will have something to do with that." While Christian later claimed that he was just prophesizing, his initial confidence suggests there might be more going on behind the scenes than Disney wants to admit. If George Lucas is indeed returning to Star Wars, it would make perfect sense that his first move would be to clean house, starting with the face of the Acolyte, Amandla Stenberg. After the catastrophic failure of the series, which received harsh criticism from both fans and critics alike, it appears that Stenberg's position within the franchise has become untenable. While there's been no official confirmation from Disney or Lucasfilm, multiple online sources have suggested that Stenberg has been dropped from at least 2 future Star Wars projects. The decision to let go of Stenberg could signal a shift in the direction of the Star Wars universe, as Disney grapples with the aftermath of the Acolyte's failure. The show, which had a considerable budget, failed to resonate with audiences, drawing negative reviews for its pacing, storytelling, and execution. Fans and critics alike expressed disappointment, with many feeling that it veered too far from the core Star Wars elements that made the franchise so beloved. Stenberg, who had been positioned as one of the show's key stars, has been at the center of controversy, both for her performance in the series and her actions off-screen. It's clear that if Lucas is truly returning to take the reins, a major reset could be in order. Cleaning up the mess left by the Acolyte and re-establishing the integrity of the Star Wars brand may be crucial in winning back disillusioned fans. With Lucas's long-standing connection to the franchise and his vision for Star Wars, fans are hopeful that his return could mark a return to form for the galaxy far, far away. However, the question remains, will this change restore the magic of Star Wars? Or is it too late for even George Lucas to save the franchise from the damage caused by Disney's handling of it? As the dust settles and more details emerge, one thing is clear. The future of Star Wars is hanging in the balance, and Lucas's alleged return could be the turning point the saga desperately needs, or the final chapter in a saga that has lost its way.
This is not me at all. I mentioned actually to my wardrobe assistant Kate last week, oh yeah, Celebration's coming up. I think that I'm gonna dress up as Padme because I love cons and I love cosplay. She was like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll mention it to the costume team. I came to work on Monday and they had the entire outfit for me, like down to the belt. They surprised me, and as one of our wardrobe artists, Amanda Cox, it was her last day, and so she gave it to me as a present. So I can't take any credit for it. Like they're just so incredible and kind.
Given how quickly the Acolyte tanked, it's not hard to understand why Star Wars fans and industry insiders are already questioning the future of the franchise. Originally, the show was intended to be a bold, fresh take on the Star Wars universe, diving into the final days of the High Republic era. The story centered around Amandla Stenberg's character, a former Padawan who reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes. This premise held potential for a thrilling new chapter in Star Wars lore, but the final product quickly became a symbol of everything fans have come to hate about Disney's handling of the franchise. Critics tore the show apart, and audiences tuned out after just a few episodes. The numbers speak for themselves. The Acolyte only pulled in 2.7 million minutes watched during its peak, a far cry from hits like Love is Blind, which racked up over 7 billion minutes in the same period. And it wasn't just the viewership that flopped. The show's merchandise, a crucial revenue stream for any Star Wars project, was an abysmal failure. Action figures that were originally priced at $25 were marked down to as low as $7.54, with shelves quickly flooded with unsold products. For a franchise that built its empire on toys and collectibles, this was a huge red flag. But instead of acknowledging the show's poor storytelling or lackluster reception, Stenberg and others involved in the project shifted the blame onto the fans. In a public statement, Stenberg described the backlash as a rampage of vitriol driven by hyper-conservative bigotry. She claimed that criticism of the show stemmed from prejudiced hatred and hateful language, rather than genuine disappointment in the quality of the show. While she expressed pride in her role and the show's message, these comments only further alienated the already frustrated Star Wars fanbase. This isn't the first time Disney and Lucasfilm have handled criticism this way. Whenever a Star Wars project underperforms, the company tends to label its critics as bigots or misogynists, rather than addressing legitimate concerns about the storytelling, character development, or respect for the Star Wars lore. This strategy has backfired repeatedly, contributing to Disney Plus losing over 1 million subscribers and causing many fans to abandon the franchise altogether. Given this track record, it's not hard to believe that Lucas, known for his unwavering dedication to storytelling and world building, would step in to make a bold move to course correct. Whether or not Lucas personally fired Stenberg, her alleged removal from future Star Wars projects signals a shift in how Lucasfilm might handle its failures moving forward. The Acolyte, now serving as the poster child for everything wrong with Disney Star Wars, is the perfect catalyst for a major change. If these rumors are true, and George Lucas is indeed returning to the fold, the alleged firing of Stenberg is more than just a personal change. It's a symbol of the franchise's desperate attempt to save itself from complete collapse. And this is just the beginning. The fallout from the Acolyte disaster is far from over, and if Lucas is back in control, it could mark the start of a massive shakeup in the Star Wars universe. But the big question remains, can even George Lucas, the creator of the galaxy far, far away, save Star Wars from the mess it has become? Let's take a closer look at why the Acolyte flopped so hard, and what this means for the future of Star Wars.
Okay. Hello. I thought I would get on here and just speak candidly, I hate doing this. I hate doing this, but I'm gonna do it. I don't use social media very much anymore, and I'm so happy about that. But there are many folks out there that I want to acknowledge and I want to show appreciation and love and support for. So that's why I'm hopping on here to talk about this, which is that our Star Wars show has been canceled. And I'm gonna be transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and when no one had even seen it. And that's when we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. And this really affected me when I first got the job, because it's just not something, even though I anticipated it happening, it's not something you can fully understand what it feels like until it's happening to you. However, I feel like I've kind of moved through those feelings in various ways, including being vocal about it myself. For me, it just became a situation where there was no option but for me to honor my sense of ethics and my belief system and my value system while being in this very unique position. It was kind of like I had this very unique experience of experiencing the world at large, which is, of course, hyper-divisive right now, through the lens of this very, very unique opportunity of being in Star Wars. And it brought up a lot for me, a lot socio-political dynamics, a lot about my own value system, how I respond to that kind of hatred, how I move through the world at large. And it just became inarguable for me at a certain point that in order to continue to be myself, I would have to honor my value system by being vocal even within the context of working for Disney and working within the large, within the large, massive IP that is Star Wars. On that topic, I just have to say it has been an incredible honor and dream for me to be in this universe. It still feels, even though, of course, I'm very sad about the show being canceled, and I'm sad about us not being able to give people who are invested into it more, because it'll just feel...
The alleged firing of Amandla Stenberg by George Lucas was not an isolated incident, but rather the result of a string of failures surrounding The Acolyte, the show that quickly became one of the biggest disasters in Disney Plus history. To fully understand this alleged decision, we need to break down The Acolyte's disastrous reception, the growing backlash from fans, and how Disney's mismanagement contributed to the ongoing decline of the Star Wars franchise. The Acolyte was touted as a bold new chapter in the Star Wars saga, set during the final days of the High Republic era, a time period that had yet to be explored by mainstream Star Wars media. The series followed Stenberg's character, a former Padawan, who teams up with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of mysterious crimes. With a unique setting and premise, it had the potential to breathe fresh life into the Star Wars franchise. Unfortunately, it quickly became a disaster. Critically, The Acolyte was panned for weak storytelling, one-dimensional characters, and disjointed plotlines. While the first few episodes garnered moderate attention, by the third episode, viewership had plummeted. Data shows that The Acolyte only managed to pull in 2.7 million minutes watched at its peak, a staggering contrast to other streaming hits like Love is Blind, which racked up over 7 billion minutes in the same period. Even within Disney's internal streaming charts, The Acolyte struggled to maintain relevance, quickly falling off the radar as fans tuned out in droves. The show's pacing and plot twists were heavily criticized as contrived and forced. Instead of immersing viewers in the rich lore of Star Wars, it felt disconnected from the universe fans had come to love over the years. Characters were either underdeveloped or poorly executed, and the show's overall narrative failed to live up to the expectations that Star Wars fans had for a series set in such an iconic universe. The failure of The Acolyte wasn't merely about disappointing ratings. It highlighted Disney's inability to capture the essence of what makes Star Wars timeless: the characters, the world building, and the deep emotional stakes that have made the franchise beloved across generations. This misstep wasn't just about a poorly received show. It reflected deeper issues within Disney's approach to Star Wars, from the initial handling of the High Republic concept to the casting decisions and the overall direction of the story. Rather than focusing on what made Star Wars work in the past, The Acolyte veered too far into forced social commentary and disconnected plotlines that alienated both casual viewers and longtime fans. The show's failure also exposed the growing divide between Disney and the Star Wars fanbase. While Star Wars fans have been vocal about the direction the franchise has taken under Disney's control, The Acolyte epitomized the disconnect. Instead of embracing the core elements that made the Star Wars saga special, Disney appeared to prioritize pushing new narratives and concepts that didn't resonate with the franchise's loyal audience. Given the backlash from fans and the catastrophic performance of The Acolyte, it's no surprise that the franchise is allegedly undergoing a major shakeup. If the rumors are true and George Lucas has returned to help course correct, firing Amanda Stenberg, if indeed he was behind it, would be a statement of intent. The decision would underscore the need to course-correct Star Wars and shift the focus back to what made the franchise iconic in the first place: strong storytelling, beloved characters, and respect for the established lore. In the wake of The Acolyte's failure, the future of Star Wars rests on whether Disney and Lucasfilm can pivot and address the growing frustrations of its fanbase. If George Lucas is truly back, his leadership may be exactly what the franchise needs to navigate its current crisis and rebuild the connection with fans that's been severely damaged in recent years. However, the path ahead is uncertain. Star Wars has already gone through several waves of changes, and it remains to be seen whether it can return to the storytelling roots that made it a global phenomenon. The fallout from The Acolyte is far from over, and it's clear that the Star Wars universe is at a crossroads.
My droid is so special and he's so cute. There was so much love and care and detail put into his creation. We actually auditioned puppeteers to audition for the personality of Pip, because he has a very unique personality. And so we read with a few different people, and then we settled upon Jack, because Jack just brought this sort of innocent quality to Pip that was also fearless, that we felt like would be really important as Osha's sidekick. And when we talked to him about it, he actually said that he based a lot of Pip's mannerisms off of his newborn daughter. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because I think he really does have this innocence and also this courageousness that children have. But it was such a unique relationship to have, because I had this, we called him the Tiny Lexus because he was such an intricate puppet, but I had him on my body at all times, and Jack was puppeteering him at all times, which also just speaks to Jack's dedication. It didn't matter if the cameras were rolling or not. Pip was always like interacting with me, saying what's up, moving his little head around. Jack was always, hidden in a corner 20 feet away watching my every movement and puppeteering Pip. And it was like this really special friendship that he and I developed as an actor and puppeteer that was like almost parasocial, but it was like incredibly intimate because he was always with me all the time.
Amanda Stenberg's response to the criticism surrounding The Acolyte epitomized a growing trend within Disney and Lucasfilm's handling of fan backlash, ignoring or deflecting legitimate concerns in favor of painting critics with broad strokes. Rather than addressing the underlying issues with the show, Stenberg accused the fanbase of engaging in racism and hyperconservative bigotry. This tactic, unfortunately, only fueled the divide between Disney and its audience. Stenberg, a gay non-binary actor who uses she/they pronouns, went as far as to describe the backlash as a rampage of vitriol, attributing the criticism not to any valid issues with the Acolyte as storytelling or character development, but rather to fans' supposed inability to accept diverse representation. In June, Stenberg released a song titled Discourse on Instagram, which took aim at the critics, calling them racists and intolerant, accusing them of weaponizing misinformation. The core message of the song was that the backlash against the show was not rooted in disappointment over its narrative or production quality, but in fans' inability to accept a more diverse Star Wars universe. This approach, while likely intended to defend the Acolyte's diversity and messaging, ended up alienating fans who felt that their legitimate concerns were being dismissed. Rather than engaging in constructive conversations about how the Acolyte could have been improved, Disney and its cast resorted to a defensive posture that blamed fans for not accepting changes they didn't want or feel connected to. This isn't the first time that Disney and Lucasfilm have used this strategy. Actors like Moses Ingram, who starred in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Kelly Marie Tran from The Last Jedi, and John Boyega from The Force Awakens have all faced public backlash and, in some cases, personal attacks from certain segments of the fanbase. In each case, instead of acknowledging the genuine concerns many fans had about the projects, Disney responded by labeling the critics as toxic, racist, or intolerant. This strategy has consistently backfired, further exacerbating the discontent among the Star Wars community. Instead of using the opportunity to address the real issues, such as rushed plotlines, underdeveloped characters, and storytelling that felt disconnected from the franchise's roots, Disney chose to paint all criticism with the same brush. By doing so, they dismissed the voices of longtime fans who felt that the recent Star Wars content was not upholding the franchise's legacy. In the case of The Acolyte, this approach was particularly damaging. Fans who expressed genuine disappointment with the show's lackluster storytelling and shallow characters felt insulted when their concerns were reframed as simply a refusal to embrace diversity. This only deepened the divide between the fans and Disney, as the company appeared more interested in defending its messaging than engaging with the creative feedback that could have led to a more successful and well-received show. Moving forward, if Disney and Lucasfilm hope to rebuild trust with the Star Wars fanbase, they will need to shift their approach. Instead of focusing on external factors like perceived bigotry or intolerance, they must engage in an honest assessment of their content and listen to their audience. Acknowledging legitimate criticisms about storytelling, character development, and respect for Star Wars lore would go a long way toward repairing the fractured relationship with the fanbase. As it stands, dismissing criticism and labeling it as bigotry only deepens the rift and makes it harder for the franchise to move forward in a positive direction.
There's a lot of duality in the job that I was given with this show. I explore both the dark and light side of the Force through the characters that I play. And in a way, they balance each other. They have a symbiotic relationship in relation to the Force. And they fall on different sides, and they have to confront each other. And in that way, the light and the dark confront each other.
Were you a fan at all of the original films, the original 3 movies?
Yeah, of course.
Who do you identify most with?
In the original trilogy?
The failure of The Acolyte and the alleged firing of Amanda Stenberg exemplify a larger issue at Disney and Lucasfilm: the struggle to balance social messaging with authentic storytelling. Critics argue that the show prioritized a woke agenda over compelling narratives and character development, leaving fans feeling disconnected from the heart of Star Wars. Instead of allowing diversity and inclusion to naturally enrich the story, The Acolyte often felt as though it was ticking boxes at the expense of engaging storytelling. Diversity in casting and storytelling is vital, but it should enhance the narrative rather than overpower it. Unfortunately, The Acolyte became the poster child for what happens when social messaging eclipses solid storytelling. The show's narrative choices felt forced and shallow, and fans were quick to point out that their issue wasn't with the diversity of the cast, but with how the show felt disjointed and disconnected from the essence of the Star Wars universe. This problem is not unique to The Acolyte. It's part of a broader trend within Disney's handling of Star Wars. From the divisive sequel trilogy to the underwhelming spin-offs, Disney's recent projects have consistently missed the mark not because of diversity, but due to mismanagement and a lack of respect for Star Wars' foundational elements. Fans have increasingly expressed frustration with how the franchise has been handled, resulting in a steady decline in viewership and engagement. In this context, it's not hard to understand why rumors have emerged about George Lucas potentially stepping back into the picture. Known for his dedication to world building and storytelling, Lucas would be an ideal candidate to course-correct the franchise. Whether or not Lucas personally fired Amanda Stenberg, the rumored decision reflects a broader desire to restore Star Wars' integrity. The Acolyte's failure, however, wasn't limited to poor ratings. It had a far-reaching impact on Disney's streaming platform, Disney+. The service has been hemorrhaging subscribers, losing over 1 million in recent months, and The Acolyte is often cited as a prime example of why. Despite Disney's best efforts to position it as a flagship Star Wars series, the show barely made a dent on streaming charts, particularly when compared to its competitors, such as Paramount Plus and Netflix. While series like The Mandalorian and Andor captured some of the magic of the original Star Wars content, The Acolyte failed to resonate with fans. This highlights a broader issue with Disney's streaming strategy, an inability to consistently produce high-quality, engaging content. The Acolyte's failure to gain traction on Disney Plus underscores the difficulty the company has had in attracting and retaining subscribers, especially with a flagship franchise like Star Wars. Equally concerning is the collapse of the Acolyte's merchandise sales. Historically, Star Wars has been a merchandising juggernaut, with toys, collectibles, and other products driving a substantial portion of revenue. However, the Acolyte, tied action figures, and collectibles were marked down sharply. Items initially priced at $25 were slashed to as low as $7.50, and shelves were flooded with unsold stock. This is a significant blow to Disney, as Star Wars merchandise has long been a crucial revenue driver for the brand. The failure of the Acolyte's merchandise sends a clear message: fans are not interested in products tied to a show they don't connect with. Disney's attempts to shame fans into supporting the show backfired, and instead of fostering goodwill, it deepened the divide between the company and the fanbase. Fans didn't just feel that the Acolyte wasn't up to Star Wars standards, they felt dismissed and insulted when their concerns were framed as bigotry. This approach not only alienated fans, but also contributed to the failure of the show on multiple fronts, from viewership to merchandise sales. In the wake of the Acolyte's collapse, Disney now faces a major crossroads. The lesson here is clear. Fans want Star Wars content that respects the legacy of the franchise, delivers compelling narratives, and avoids prioritizing social messaging over storytelling. If Disney hopes to rebuild the Star Wars brand and win back the audience it has lost, it will need to focus on quality, respect for the original Star Wars vision, and creating stories that resonate with fans on a deeper level than just ticking off diversity boxes.
My brother-in-law and my sister. They've been together since they were 14, so I've known my brother-in-law my whole life. And they've introduced me to anything nerd-related that I love now, fantasy and sci-fi, video games and anime, and we watched Star Wars together when I was a kid.
Hello there.
And so, definitely them.
Pretty special.
Yeah.
By labeling critics as bigots and dismissing valid concerns about the quality of the Acolyte, Disney further alienated its core audience. Fans who had been loyal to the Star Wars franchise for decades felt betrayed and disrespected. Instead of listening to constructive feedback, the company doubled down on their messaging, which only pushed away those who genuinely cared about the heart of the Star Wars universe. Contrast this approach with shows like X-Men '97, which focused on strong storytelling, character development, and respect for its source material. X-Men '97 was a hit not because it pushed an agenda, but because it was rooted in compelling narratives that honored what made the original X-Men series beloved. The Acolyte, on the other hand, failed because it prioritized social messaging over good storytelling. Fans weren't rejecting diversity or inclusivity. They were rejecting a poorly executed show that felt disconnected from the Star Wars universe they cherished. The Acolyte didn't resonate with audiences because its story felt secondary to its agenda, and that gap was impossible to overlook. Disney's larger problem isn't limited to Star Wars. The company's entire content strategy is faltering. Disney Plus has seen a significant decline in subscribers, a clear sign that audiences are disengaging from the platform. While competitors like Netflix and Paramount Plus continue to thrive with original content, Disney Plus struggles to keep viewers interested as its content fails to meet expectations. The failures of The Acolyte and other underperforming projects are contributing to this ongoing decline, further damaging Disney's reputation. The Star Wars brand, in particular, is facing mounting challenges. From the divisive sequel trilogy to lackluster spin-offs, Disney has consistently missed the mark. Fans feel that Disney has lost touch with what made Star Wars special in the first place: its rich lore, strong characters, and compelling storytelling. The Acolyte is just the latest in a string of failures that have left the franchise fractured and divided. What's clear is that Disney is at a crossroads. If the company hopes to salvage Star Wars and its broader content strategy, it needs to focus on the things that have always resonated with audiences: authentic storytelling, respect for the source material, and a genuine connection with fans. Without this, Disney risks continuing its downward spiral and losing its core fanbase for good.
First said he did a great job. Thank you very much. Coming from you, that means a lot. Well, it could have gone very bad. But it didn't as much. It's Star Wars on steroids at a level you can't possibly believe. And I'd also like to thank all the Imagineers and others here that made this thing possible, because it's the first time that I worked with the Imagineers a long time ago, and we did, everything was like it was in the old days, where it was very hard to do anything. So now the technology is here. This thing is amazing. It's really something that you couldn't even dream about 20 years ago. So I hope you enjoy it. It was a great experience for me, and I think that you'll change your life.
Even with George Lucas's alleged return, it may be too late to save the Star Wars franchise. The fan base has grown disillusioned, and the brand's reputation has taken a serious hit, one that might be impossible to fully recover from. Fans are tired of being blamed for the failures of Star Wars content when, in reality, the issue lies with the poor storytelling and mismanagement of the franchise. If Disney truly wants to save Star Wars, they need to focus on rebuilding trust with the audience. That means focusing on authentic storytelling that respects the core elements that made Star Wars beloved in the first place. It's not just about checking boxes or pushing agendas. It's about crafting compelling narratives and fully developed characters that feel at home in the Star Wars universe. So, is George Lucas the savior Star Wars needs? Some might argue that with his return, there's hope to steer the franchise back to its roots and reignite the passion that once made Star Wars a cultural phenomenon. But given the extensive damage done to the brand over the past few years, one has to wonder if it's too far gone to truly fix, no matter who is at the helm. What do you think? Could Lucas save the galaxy far, far away, or is Star Wars beyond repair? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more updates on this developing story.